Congress, and this is News Recap. No fluff, straight to the point.
The investigation into the assassination of Charlie Kirk is revealing new evidence. Anonymous site publishes personal data of Kirk opponents. Tragedy strikes. Bodies of a woman and 2 children pulled from Lake Michigan. Florida woman fights off an alligator to save her dog.
The investigation into the assassination of conservative activist Charlie Kirk is revealing new evidence, but many questions remain about the suspect's motive. FBI Director Kash Patel says DNA evidence ties 22-year-old Tyler Robinson directly to the crime scene. His DNA was found on a screwdriver left on a rooftop and on a towel wrapped around the rifle believed to have been used in the attack. Patel also confirmed investigators uncovered messages where Robinson wrote about a plan, quote, to take out Kirk because of his political views. Still, Robinson has not been cooperating with investigators, and authorities say they are not ready to draw conclusions about what drove him to carry out the attack.
We can confirm that again, according to family and people that we're interviewing, he does come from a conservative family, but his ideology was very different than his family, and so that's part of it. We do know that the roommate that we had originally talked about, we can confirm that roommate is a boyfriend who is transitioning from male to female. So we know that piece.
Despite the suspect coming from a conservative family, President Trump framed the threat differently, blaming the left for political violence.
Well, the problem is on the left. If you look at the problem is on the left. It's not on the right, like some people like to say on the right. The problem we have is on the left. And when you look at the agitators, you look at the scum that speaks so badly of our country, the American flag burnings all over the place, that's the left, that's not the right.
Robinson is a student at Dixie Technical College, not registered with any political party, and did not vote in the past 2 general elections. He's expected to be formally charged on Tuesday. Republican leaders and Trump administration officials gathered on Sunday at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. to honor Charlie Kirk. A large screen displayed clips of Kirk's speeches, interviews, and news coverage as attendees, including House Speaker Mike Johnson and Health Secretary Robert Kennedy Jr., paid their respects. Flowers, U.S. flags, and handwritten notes were also left at a makeshift memorial at Utah Valley University. The funeral is scheduled for September 21st at State Farm Stadium. Turning Point USA has invited supporters to join in celebrating Kirk's life and legacy, calling him an American legend. President Trump has said he will attend the funeral. Vice President J.D. Vance, who accompanied Kirk's casket from Utah to Phoenix, will host an edition of the Charlie Kirk Show on Monday night as a tribute, highlighting Kirk's impact on conservative youth and the MAGA movement. Kirk's wife, Erica, has pledged to continue her husband's mission. The Trump administration is asking Congress for $58 million to increase security for their executive and judicial branches after the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Officials also say they support adding more protection for members of Congress, but it's up to lawmakers to decide how. The request comes as both parties work on a short-term funding bill and as lawmakers take extra steps for their own safety, like moving events indoors or canceling them altogether, after Kirk's killing in Utah and a rise in political violence. Recent incidents include the murder of Minnesota lawmaker Melissa Hortman and her husband, the wounding of another legislator and spouse, and arson attack at Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro's home, and 2 assassination attempts against President Trump himself. Some lawmakers are backing the call for more money. Senators Chris Coons and James Lankford said on Sunday that protecting public officials isn't only about safety, it's also about making sure civil debate can continue in the country. As tributes to Charlie Kirk continue, another story is unfolding online. Conservative activists and some Republican officials are spotlighting social media posts about Kirk's death, including posts that criticized or questioned him, and sharing the identities of those behind them. The anonymous site Expose Charlie's Murderers has thousands of submissions and plans a searchable database of names, jobs, and locations. Far-right figures like Laura Loomer are involved. Some people highlighted report harassment and threats, and teachers, analysts, and others have already lost their jobs over their posts. It raises concerns about the limits of free expression. Kirk expressed bold, controversial views, yet now disagreeing with him online can have real-world consequences. Experts caution that attacking critics risks turning normal disagreement into harassment, undermining open discussion and democracy itself. In today's climate, many people seem confused about the difference between free speech and hate speech. A stark example came this weekend when Fox News host Brian Kilmeade apologized for saying on air that mentally ill homeless people should be killed. The comment came during a Fox and Friends discussion about a recent stabbing of a Ukrainian refugee in Charlotte, North Carolina. Kilmeade suggested lethal action against homeless people who refuse services. On Sunday, he called the remark extremely callous and said he now understands that most homeless mentally ill people deserve empathy and support. Advocates called the comment completely devoid of all humanity and invited Kilmeade to volunteer at a shelter to better understand the challenges faced by homeless people. South Korea is checking whether its workers were treated unfairly after a U.S. immigration raid at Hyundai plant in Georgia. Over 300 South Korean employees were among about 475 people detained on September 4th for allegedly working illegally or overstaying their visas. President Trump said he doesn't want the incident to scare off foreign investment. Seems a little bit too late for that. He added that foreign workers are welcome in the U.S. and their expertise in making complex products like chips, computers, and ships could help train American workers. A South Korean spokesperson said the government is working with companies to see if any human rights violations occurred. The U.S. Deputy Secretary of State expressed regret over the raid during talks with South Korean officials. In the meantime, protesters gathered on Saturday outside an ICE facility in Broadview, Illinois, demanding justice after the arrest of William Jimenez. Jimenez was pulled over while driving in Chicago's Little Village neighborhood and detained by federal agents. ICE says he was arrested for being in the country illegally.
We are here to demand William's immediate release, to demand transparency from ICE, and to affirm that we'll not be intimidated, okay? Because this isn't right. It ain't right. And our movement is resilient. Look at all the people here, right? The people that showed up on an instant, right? That's community, and that's the community that backs William, that backs every other worker, that backs every other immigrant community.
Community members say the arrest is unfair and called for his immediate release, demanding transparency from the agency. ICE says it was simply enforcing U.S. law. Protesters emphasized that the detention affects the wider immigrant community, raising concerns as Mexican Independence Day approaches. While many communities push back against aggressive ICE raids, President Trump is warning he might take control of D.C.'s police again if the city doesn't fully cooperate with federal immigration authorities. Trump's 30-day control of D.C.'s police ended last week, but he warns crime could spike without full cooperation on deporting, quote, dangerous illegal aliens. He threatened a national emergency and federal takeover if needed. Mayor Muriel Bowser recently set up coordination with federal law enforcement, leaving ICE out, saying immigration enforcement isn't the city's job. Health Secretary Robert Kennedy Jr. continues his crusade against vaccines. Although he says he won't take them away, experts warn that his actions could lead to reduced vaccine availability and increased public health risks. Kennedy has criticized the Vaccine Injury Compensation Program, which helps people who are harmed by vaccines and protects drug companies from some lawsuits. He's brought in staff known for suing vaccine makers and has suggested adding autism to the list of injuries the program covers. Experts say these changes could overload the system and scare manufacturers. If companies see more lawsuits or risk, some could stop making vaccines altogether. Kennedy could also influence which vaccines the CDC recommends, which could make legal claims harder and reduce supply. The VICP has paid billions to people injured by vaccines and helped keep vaccine production stable. Experts warn that changing it could make vaccines harder to get and make compensation harder for families with real injuries. President Trump praised U.S. tariffs on China and addressed TikTok as trade talks continued in Spain. Chinese and U.S. officials met on Monday for the second day of discussions on trade, tariffs, export controls, and TikTok. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is leading the U.S. delegation in Madrid. Trump indicated the U.S. could end negotiations with TikTok or continue them, noting he has extended the platform's shutdown deadline multiple times. Congress passed a law requiring ByteDance, TikTok's parent company, to sell its controlling stake or face a U.S. ban, with the next deadline on September 17th. The president highlighted TikTok's role in helping him reach younger voters and said trade talks would address economic issues and national security concerns, including the popular social media app. He also noted that China is currently paying substantial tariffs and that discussions will focus on balancing trade, national security, and platform ownership. President Donald Trump heads to the United Kingdom on Tuesday for a two-day state visit. The British government hopes the trip will showcase a strong US-UK partnership and maybe even land a big tech deal despite disagreements over Ukraine, the Middle East, and the Western Alliance. Trump's visit will feature horse-drawn carriages, military honor guards, and a fancy banquet. He'll meet King Charles III at Windsor Castle before heading to Chequers, the Prime Minister's country retreat, for talks with Keir Starmer. Officials say the visit is meant to highlight shared values like the rule of law and open markets and naturally remind everyone that the US-UK relationship is still strong. A Utah man who faked his own death to avoid arrest is facing trial on new sexual assault charges. Nicholas Laverdian, also known as Nicholas Rossi, is accused of raping at least 2 women in 2008. One alleged victim was a former girlfriend who said he became aggressive and assaulted her after she asked him to repay borrowed money. The second was his former fiancée, who he was convicted of assaulting last month in Salt Lake County. Laverdian fled the U.S., lived in the UK, and claimed a false identity before being extradited back to Utah in January 2024. He has pleaded not guilty in both cases. Authorities say some allegations were delayed for years due to testing backlogs. Chicago police are investigating after 3 people, including 2 children, were found dead in Lake Michigan on Saturday. The first body, an infant girl, was discovered in the morning. Hours later, the bodies of a 31-year-old woman and a 6-year-old boy were recovered nearby. Police believe the deaths are connected and may stem from a domestic dispute. Autopsies are pending, and authorities have not released the victims' identities yet. The Emmy Awards were held last night, and it was a big evening for some surprise winners. HBO Max's low-budget drama, The Pitt, took home the top prize for Best Drama, beating Apple TV+'s Severance. Noah Wyle won Best Actor in a Drama for his role in The Pitt, marking his first Emmy since being nominated more than 2 decades ago. Apple TV+ still had a big night with its Hollywood satire, The Studio, which won Best Comedy. Seth Rogen collected 4 awards for acting, writing, producing, and directing the show. Netflix Adolescence also had a breakthrough, winning Best Limited Series and several acting prizes. One of those went to 15-year-old Owen Cooper, who became the youngest actor ever to win a Primetime Emmy. Cooper, a British newcomer, won Outstanding Supporting Actor in a limited series for playing Jamie Miller in Adolescence, his very first professional acting role. Stephen Colbert's recently cancelled Late Show won Best Talk Show, earning a standing ovation. Severance and Hacks both scored acting wins, while Jean Smart picked up her 4th Emmy for Hacks. The ceremony also featured tributes to TV classics like Law & Order, Grey's Anatomy, and The Golden Girls. A Florida woman is proving once again why the Sunshine State should really just be called the land of things trying to kill you. Danny Wright was in her backyard in Land O'Lakes with her dog Dax when an alligator lunged out of a nearby creek. The gator grabbed Dax by the collar and dragged him toward the water. Wright says she wasn't letting go. She held onto the leash, punching and kicking until the gator finally loosened its grip. "I punched him in the eye, enough that he kind of let go," she said. But not before the animal left her with bite marks down her arm. The dog wasn't hurt, but Wright needed stitches, a tetanus shot, and antibiotics. The Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission later trapped and removed the alligator. And that is all for now. The top stories of the day, no fluff, straight to the point. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and drop a comment. I'm Kat Pokras. See you next time.